Well, hello, Michelle. Welcome back to the show. It's an honor to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it has been, a few years since you were last on talking about your book. Can you talk to us about your new book and how your message has evolved since 14 Talks by age 14?
I'd love to. So the new book is called Eight Setbacks That Can Make a Child a Success. And the sort of theme of the book is how does failure function in our kids' lives? And the TLDR here, too long didn't read answer, is it is one of the best tools for helping usher kids across the threshold into happy, productive, resilient adulthood. We tend to fear our kids' mistakes and failures and face plants, especially when they're public, but they really are crucial to positive development. And so the book is about reframing how we look at failure, how we perceive our role as the adult in a child's failure to be. And my hope is that it will like my other book, hopefully provide some relief to parents who are starting to see their kids mess up, often in public ways, and help them feel a little more comfort and purpose around those mess ups.
Yeah, because it does feel like an indictment on our parenting skills. And it's like we can be doing all of the right things, having all the great conversations at home, and then your kid does something and it's like immediate like shame and guilt and all these emotions come up. So talk to us about not only how you approach this very difficult and sometimes complicated issue, but what are some ways that parents can start reframing the narrative in their own lives about this?
I'm so happy that you said that, because I do think that's one of the first places our minds go, is we worry about what this means about our child. Is my kid a narcissist? Is my kid a sociopath? Like, will I have a relationship with my child when they're older because they're so confrontational right now, or whatever it may be? We go to the worst possible fear. And right after that, I think the next fear we go to is, what does this say about my parenting? Do I look like a jerk to all these other parents out here who are seeing this? And so what I hope that parents will gain from this is a peek behind the curtain into the normalcy that every kid is going to do this, even if you are a parenting expert, even if you interview parenting experts, even if you are, there are all these tropes about, like, oh, the preacher's daughter is the most rebellious,
Right.
or like the psychologist kid has the most problems. And the truth is, really, all kids have problems, challenges that they face growing up. And I want parents to find a sense of relief and comfort in reading this and seeing so many examples of other families who were willing to kind of lift the veil of shame and secrecy and say, this is what we went through. I think that's really crucial for us as a community, to uplift other families and not put them down and not worry about what that says about us personally when our kids mess up, but really to kind of embrace it and say, okay, here's a moment to grow on.
Yeah. And I love how in your book, it's not just about, you know, philosophy and theories. It's like it uses real world examples and it takes a real world, like practical approach. Can you talk about your 3-step approach? Because I looked at it and it's so genius. And I mean, I know you hear this all the time, but it's like, oh, duh, like, of course this would work. And this is why. Can you talk about that for our listener? So
That's
good.
so nice of you to say. Thank you. Yes. So, what I did to prepare for this book was I interviewed parents from across the country about issues that they had faced raising their kids. And I knew specifically what issues I was looking for based on my work, what were kind of the most common archetypes of failure. So, like failure to connect with peers, or failure to take care of their body, failure to do well in schools, like all of these things. And from all of their stories and all of my research, I came up with 3 steps that every family can use, regardless of the challenge that they're facing, to help their kids get through it. And so those are called contain, resolve, and evolve. And the first step, contain, that either means you need to contain the problem that's coming at your kid, or you may need to contain your kid if your kid is making some choices that are dangerous. So that's step one, is just kind of applying a tourniquet so you can stop the bleeding. Step two is moving from containing the problem to resolving the problem. And in the book, there's a long list of menu items parents can pick from. So it's like, okay, in order to resolve this challenge or crisis or whatever it is, we're going to need to pick from this menu. And it looks like we need an apology and we need to rebuild some trust. Or it looks like we need to work on education. I think this is something our kid just didn't really know about. So there are a lot of choices there. You do that step. And then the third step is evolve. And to me, this is the most important step in the process. Evolve means it's time to put this in your rear view mirror. You do not want this challenge to be the headline of your kid's childhood. You really want to move past it. And so I say parents need to stop pressing the bruise. They need to stop checking in on it. They need to stop asking every time their kid goes out, you're going to be safe, right? You're going to make good choices, right? Like,
Because there's
or
that doubt.
yeah, it's peppering it with doubt. And it's also like, it feels like a way of making sure that we're being a good parent, but really it's just reminding the kid of how they messed up. And that's not a good way to grow. And so we need to put it in our rear view mirror and evolve past it.
Yeah. I love that the parent then is coming to the child with still that emotionality, that love, that care, like I'm doing this for you. But at the same time, it's taking away too much emotion and too much, this is about me now because you're a failure. So it's a reflection on me. Like, to me, that's a really healthy and positive way to deal with a heart-wrenching and a lot of times situation, because it's your child. You would do anything for them. You want to fix the problem. How do you separate the child from the problem? Are they not intricately linked? How do you differentiate?
That's such a good question. Are they not intricately linked? So I have, it's funny that you say that because I just read a thing in a parenting group online where the parent said, I swore I said to my kid, your behavior disgusts me. And what the child heard was, you disgust me, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember a very similar experience growing up where my dad was so upset at a very bad thing I did. I mean, as an adult, I'm like, oh, I would have lost my, senses if my kid did that. And I did that. And I remember him saying like, oh, that was so stupid. Why could you do something so stupid? And I heard, you're so stupid.
Mhm.
So it may feel to you that you're doing a good job separating them out with your vocabulary, but your child's not listening for grammar. They're not listening that acutely. They are watching your emotions and they are feeding off of your expression. And so whether you feel that the child and the issue, the challenge are intricately linked, and they may be, doesn't matter. What matters is whether the kid reduces that experience to a sense of shame, which we don't want, or to a feeling of regret, which we do want. So we really want the kid to feel a bit of embarrassment or pain or regret or discomfort, even guilt over making a bad choice. That those emotions are really productive. Shame is not productive because it just says, I'm a bad person. I can't be better. I can't make better choices. So I really think like the question is interesting, but the answer is it doesn't matter. What matters is how you talk and convey this to your child. And so you may have to be really explicit. You may have to say, that was a choice that could have gotten you hurt. And that's what upsets me because I love you and I care for you and you're a great person and I don't want you to get hurt. And you'll also need to really regulate your voice and regulate your face. And that's hard to do. So try to get all that emotionality out with your friends or your partner before you talk to your kid.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. Like, it really is the hardest job in the world, like being a healthy, happy model for your children. So much internal work has to be done. I would recommend people read the book themselves first and then start trying to practice the things in it. Or do you find that you can read a chapter and then jump right into it?
So I think it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. You can say, oh, I'm in crisis mode right now. My kid is binge drinking, or my child is possibly depressed. So, all the examples in the book are not that heavy. But if you find yourself in a crisis and you're in a situation that feels that heavy, you can go to that chapter, read just that right now to give yourself some words, to some language to put to the situation. I think that's helpful. But If you are not yet in a situation that is crippling, then I think your method is right, to just read it first and soak it up and say, okay, I'm going to give some thought to my philosophy around this and how I want to be thinking about this. But I also want to assure parents what you just said about it being the hardest job to be sort of mentally healthy enough to kind of like parent healthily is correct. I think it is the hardest thing. And I think you don't have to be perfect at it. I think you can mess up. I am the author of the book, and I have lost it before.
Yeah.
I mean, I
That's
have
good to know.
had to go back and say, I am so sorry that I just lost it. And I think that that's also a really good way to model healthy behavior.
Yeah, yeah. And going back to the 3-step approach, I love how one of the elements was control the narrative. So when you're talking about the problem and what happened and what it is, you really do tell the story of how you're going to move on from that. How important is storytelling? And this is something that honestly, it has been showing up in every interview that I've been doing lately. Humans and storytelling and how that impacts how we heal and what we do next.
So I think it is hugely important, and was and is the impetus for so much of my work, so many different aspects of the book. So that sort of being the PR manager for your child, I want you to
Love that.
control the narrative in the sense that sometimes we think, oh, my child has done this really dumb thing. They've gotten suspended or, whatever it is. And we think we have to say, I know that was stupid. We raised this child better, very publicly, so as not to, like, as you said before, kind of indict our own parenting, right? That doesn't serve your child well, to get out there and kind of bash what they've been through. And it also doesn't teach other people how to talk about your child or other kids in the community who've screwed up. It's normal and natural to make a really bad choice when you're growing up. That's just part of it. And so I think if we can lead the way in how we talk about it as like, gosh, yeah, it wasn't a good choice, but I feel confident in this kid to kind of figure out what the next move is going to be, and we're going to support them through it. That's a much better PR manager than, we taught this kid better. I can't believe they did such a thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the storytelling. And the other storytelling thing that I love about this is coming of age, just the idea of like, what does it mean to become an adult? And sometimes I think we get it really wrong culturally. We think it means throwing a big party or giving them the keys to the car or whatever it might be. But what it really means in terms of literature, in terms of like real storytelling and novels and that sort of thing, it means separating from your group, going away, being isolated. Maybe that's Stand By Me and you're walking down the railroad tracks to find a dead body. Maybe that's Star Wars and you're going to fight the rebel forces or the bad guys. I'm obviously not a Star Wars fan. Okay. Someone's going to write you an email. I'm so sorry. I don't know. But the idea is that you have to separate from your group and go be alone and do a really hard thing and make some mistakes and figure out how to be a better person. Then you come back to the community knowing more and being a better adult. So that is like the ultimate in storytelling for me.
Yeah, it's that search for wisdom, that desire for wisdom. And you can't really get there unless you go through the darkness, really.
Yeah, no one learns from things being perfect. That's not a good environment for learning. And no one learns from things being traumatic. That's also not a good environment for growth. A really good environment for growth has just enough pain that you are uncomfortable, but you learn to cope with discomfort. So there's an analogy I use in the book that greenhouse keepers use, and when they have little baby plants and they want to ensure that these plants can grow up to be strong and tough and thrive in the world outside of the greenhouse, they do a thing called hardening off, where they take the plants and they put them out in the frozen air for short amounts of time, and then they bring them back into the greenhouse. But they want them exposed to that discomfort, really. We as parents need to do the same thing. We need to let our kids get hardened in a way that builds their coping skills and their resilience and their strength, so that we don't take these sweet little saplings and put them down on a college dorm and say, now be fine.
Yeah, that's so true. So what are some really great ways, aside from learning and discussing, mistakes are a great way to get hard into the world and to learn and to gain
Mhm.
wisdom. Are there some other situations that you recommend in the book that you can put your children in to do that in a safe way?
For the most part, actually, what I say to parents is you don't have to manufacture a way for your child to get tougher. So I don't want you to have to wake your kid up at 5 a.m. and take them outside to start shoveling. It's not that, but the world is going to create enough circumstances
Yeah.
for them to get toughened up. What I want for you to do is to create space in your home where you can talk about those things, and you do it without a sense of judgment. It's just more like, yeah, that is so hard. That's part of life as we know it. What can I do to help you through? What's going to make it, a little bit easier for you at home while you're dealing with this issue of a breakup with a friend, or a heartache over romance, or failing a class, whatever it might be. So you want to be supportive of it emotionally, but you're not going to have to create scenarios. The world is full of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I know this is a parenting book, but what about the lessons that educators, teachers can glean from this book? Because I know that there's just so many ways for this to be of good in the classroom.
I love that. So I think for teachers, what I keep hearing from teachers I talk to is kids aren't comfortable with discomfort. They really are upset when things don't go their way. And I think we've created this culture where we expect so much of kids. We want them in every activity. We want their resumes to be really precise and really deep by the time they are in middle and high school. And so we don't give them time to kind of float around and figure out what feels right and what
Mm.
feels wrong to them. So I think when teachers can create space in the classroom that allows kids to explore discomfort, and the way that we do that isn't by keeping it secret. Like, I'm running a secret experiment. I'm making you sit next to someone you don't like, and I'm going to see what the result is. But really to lift the veil on it and say, what I want to talk about this quarter is discomfort and how we can get stronger. So what are some things at school that are uncomfortable, and how can we deal with it? Brainstorming with kids is a great classroom activity around this. Just giving kids, I think, the vocabulary to talk about it. Like, are you uncomfortable or experiencing discomfort because you feel guilt? Or do you feel awkward? Or,
Mhm.
whatever it is. But like, I think kids need the words to put to how they're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And adults too. Like I keep coming
Yes.
back to that. It's like it's giving me so much of a vocabulary to even approach my children and not do it in a way that's like I'm coming down on you, I'm laying down the law because for me, I know personally that did the opposite. That had the opposite effect on me. Like yes, I will do what you say and look like I'm doing what you say, but really I'm going to go that far the other direction because it just was the wrong approach. But I feel like if my parents had come to me with these lessons and just this more of a gentle approach, more of an open, let's talk about it approach, I feel like, yeah, that would have changed the game.
I feel so similarly. Like, there's a big difference between a child being compliant and a child being respectful. And a lot of
Hmm.
parents confuse the two, and they think, well, if my kid toes the line and they have good manners in public, then they are a respectful person. But they may just be doing that because they don't want to deal with the consequence of not being compliant, and they haven't actually learned what real respect is and how that's earned. And so I think a lot of parents, there's some gray area there based on how we were raised,
Yeah.
and I think it's really good to, like, I still want I have rules for my kids for sure. And some of them, many of them had to do with manners. Uh, but also I wanted to create an environment in which they could express um, what they were displeased with and what they thought should change. There's a Child's Bill of Rights in the book where I talk about what I think are sort of inherent rights that kids deserve to have growing up in their home, like the right to make a mistake and the right to try to fix it themselves. And one of them is the right to advocate for themselves and not just be a compliant person, but to say,
Mhm.
no, I actually think it should be this way. And I want to tell you why.
I think that grows really intelligent, critical thinkers. I mean, doesn't it? Like, yes, it takes more time to do it this way, but you are sending a kid off to college with the ability to think for themselves and to not just follow what the pack is doing or what the professor is saying. I mean, it really does empower them.
That's my hope, is that they will build that muscle for critical thinking. And then, yeah, that we have people who are more thoughtful, who are able to listen to multiple perspectives, and who can engage in not necessarily like debate, but in sort of like a conversation. Because I think debate
Mhm.
is often about winning, but more of
Mhm.
a healthy conversation about like, let's just share how we're both seeing this right now. And I think that would benefit our society as a whole in so many ways.
Oh my gosh, so many ways. And two, I think like the battles between egos, between parents and children, I mean, that is just taken away. It's taken away because at the end of the day, like we're doing this, we're having these conversations for you, for your success. And you're not a horrible person because you did make this mistake.
I love that. I mean, and for anyone who's listening who thinks like this sounds too soft,
Mm,
which was my concern in writing. I was like, I don't want people to think it sounds too soft. I do want there to be consequences. I do
mhm.
think kids need boundaries. And I say in the book, when your child's world gets too big, you need to make it smaller. So if your
Yeah.
child is doing things that are unsafe, I guess what I want parents to evaluate is my child's act of rebellion or their mistake or whatever it is that upsetting to me because it's annoying and disruptive, or is it upsetting to me because it's dangerous? So I want parents to have a clear understanding of that. And your kid is going to be annoying and disruptive from time to time. I don't want it to be all the time. I want you to have a nice home
Right.
life. But like, that's part of their job, is kind of figuring out where the walls are. And they're going to bump into a bunch of things trying to figure that out. But I don't want them to be in danger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone listening, that resonates. We
Good.
understand that. Um, do you have any specific hope for the book? You talked about, you want people to have pleasant home lives and happy, successful kids. Is there anything specific that when you were writing this book, you're like, I really want this to hit home?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, the thing that hit home for me as a parent, not just the author of the book, was talking with all these families across the country. I asked every family at the end of our interview if, and I only had the parents in the interview, not the kids, but I said, now you've been through this. And the experiences, they ranged from subtle, like, my kid just is sort of being a jerk, to shocking, my kid was hospitalized for drinking too much, or whatever it might be, like this big span of failures in some way or another. So I asked them at the end, if I could give you a magic wand and you could go back and erase this experience that was really difficult for you and your child, would you use it? And all but one said, I would not. If you
Mm.
had asked me when we were going through this, I would have grabbed the magic wand from you. I would have loved to get rid of this. But now that time has passed, we feel like what our child learned from this experience is too valuable to lose. So I can't give up the whole thing and get rid of the bad, uncomfortable parts of it, because now they know X, Y, or Z. They know who to trust. They know how to take care of themselves. They know where their limits are. They know what the boundaries are. So for me, that was such a relief to hear, and something I hope every parent remembers wherever they are on this sort of journey, that like, it might feel right now that I want to wish this away. It's embarrassing or painful or whatever it might be. But really, down the road, this is going to be one of the things we're so thankful for in our lives. That's hard to imagine, but based on all the people I talked with, it was comforting to know that they almost all felt this way.
Wow, that is incredible.
Mm.
Now, you did mention before the interview that you are speaking at different schools. Is this what you're speaking about, or is it something totally different?
Yeah, so I regularly go around the country and talk, but I am doing a sort of speaker's blitz on this book. So I'll be
Mm.
talking about failure. I'll be talking about coming of age, what we as parents get right and wrong about helping kids through this process, and really what helps kids pass through these challenges and make them moments to grow on instead of getting stuck there. So I will be talking in Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, DC, Charlotte about this specific topic throughout the fall.
That's so exciting. That's so great. And
Thank you.
kids are going to be in the audience, and it's not just parents and teachers.
Yeah, so it kind of
Okay.
depends on how the school organizes it. Some schools have me talk to kids, some have me talk to parents, some like a combo. So we can get creative.
I mean, I can already feel like someone is going to hear your message, and that weight of shame and guilt over maybe something totally small and insignificant to anyone else, but to that person, that's going to be washed away. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this book to be out in the world. And I'm so excited for your message to just continue to grow and grow and grow, because we definitely need it. We definitely need
Love
it.
talking to you because you really get it, and you really have such a good heart around these topics we have the same exact hope. I love the way you said that.
Yeah. So to round us out, do you have anything else that you would like to leave with the listener today about the book, about anything that you've learned on your life's journey?
I think just be kind to yourself and each other. The best thing we can do, whether we're feeling upset or something has happened to our child or maybe to a friend's kid, is to just say, you know what, it's going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. We're just humans here trying to get through it. So a little extra dose of kindness, I think, is what we need.
Beautiful. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to come back on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to have you back in another year or two with your new book,
Oh
whatever
gosh,
that may be.
who knows? But yes, I would
Yeah,
love to.
absolutely. And yeah, hope to see you in Atlanta.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks.